What's up guys, Jay here with Tap and Turn Gaming, and welcome to the Ravnica City of Guilds Battle for Supremacy. Now for the next couple of weeks, the videos that we're going to be featuring on our channel will be the deck techs for all 10 guilds. Now I've taken it upon myself to build 5 of the guild decks, and Derek has taken it upon himself to build the other 5. So, we're pretty excited about making this content for you guys. We love Ravnica. We just love the flavor of it. We love, the fact that there's 10 guilds and we're going to battle them against each other. It's going to be really great. It's going to be fun. We hope you guys enjoy the content as much as we are excited about making it. But this deck tech video will feature the Boros Guild, which is one of the decks that I built. So I hope you guys enjoy the video and stay tuned for the deck tech. Hey guys, Jay here again with Tap and Turn Gaming, and welcome to the Boros Guild deck tech. One of the things that I believe we forgot to mention in our introductory video is that from now on with future deck techs, before we used to do them in 2 parts. Part 1 would just be the quick overview of the deck, and then the second part we would go into more discussion about the cards in the deck and why we chose them. Me and Derek have come to the decision to consolidate the deck tech videos into one video now. So it's not going to be as long as the 2 videos combined. We're just going to try to consolidate it into one video, because from what we've seen from the views on our videos, the part 1s usually get the bulk of the views, and then the part 2s don't get very many at all. So we're just going to consolidate future deck techs from here on out into one video. So just wanted to throw that out there. But this is the deck tech for the Boros Guild. So let's get right into it, shall we? So obviously the guild leader that I chose for this deck, or the commander of this deck, is Aurelia the War Leader. There are the stipulation cards. If you saw the introduction video to the Battle of the Guilds, you'll know that all 4 of the legends from the Boros Guild will be in the deck. But this particular creature I chose to be the commander of this particular deck. Most of the decks that I built, at least the 5 that I did, the guild masters that were featured in Return to Ravnica are the guild master, or the commanders I should say, of the EDH decks that I did build. So let's take a look at Aurelia the War Leader. She is a 6-cost, 3/4 legendary angel with flying, vigilance, and haste, which is pretty nice on its own. But the big thing on her is whenever Aurelia the War Leader attacks for the first time each turn, untap all creatures you control. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So basically, she lets you attack twice in one turn whenever she attacks. So it's very fitting for the Boros Guild. They're all about war. They're basically the military. In Ravnica, they're the army. They go to war. And they're very aggressive. Red and white is a very aggressive color combination. So this creature is a very aggressive creature. It has vigilance, it has haste, it flies, and it gives you an additional combat phase when it itself attacks. So I felt like Aurelia was a very fitting creature to be the commander of the Boros deck. So that is the commander of the deck, Aurelia the War Leader. Now the next cards that we're going to take a look at are the stipulation cards. So if you did see the introduction video, the stipulation cards that we have for each guild deck are all 4 of the legendary creatures. So obviously we just took a look at the first one, Aurelia the War Leader. So all the guild decks have to have all 4 legends, all 3 of the mana rocks, all of the lands that coincide with that guild. So, the shock land, the bounce land, the guild gate, and I believe, I don't think we showed it in the introduction video, but the guild's, home, their base of operations. So with the Boros Guild, I believe it's Sunhome, Fortress of the Legion. So all of the lands, the 1 charm, and the 2 guild mages. So first up, we're going to take a look at the stipulation cards for the Boros Guild, so you can see that they are in the deck. So the second legendary creature for the Boros Legion is Tajik, Blade of the Legion. He's a 4-cost 2/2 legendary human soldier, and he is indestructible. So that's pretty damn good. But he has the Boros ability from the Return to Ravnica block called Battalion. Whenever Tajik and at least 2 other creatures attack, Tajik gets +5/+5 until end of turn. So he's pretty damn good. So if you attack with him and at least 2 other creatures, he becomes an indestructible 7/7. So he's pretty solid, I would say. So there's legend number 2. Legend number 3 here is Agris Kos, Wojek Veteran. He's a 5-cost 3/3 legendary human soldier. When he attacks, attacking red creatures you control get +2/+0, and attacking white creatures get +0/+2 until end of turn. So he's pretty cool. I mean, he pumps himself. So basically, when he attacks, he becomes a 5/5. But you know, if you attack with more creatures than just him, your red ones get +2/+0, your white ones get +0/+2. So he's pretty cool. I like him. And lastly, the last legendary creature was the Guildmaster from the original Ravnica block, Razia Boros Archangel. She's an 8-cost 6/3 legendary angel with flying, vigilance, and haste, and she allows you to tap her to make it so that the next 3 damage that would be dealt to target creature you control this turn is dealt to another target creature instead. So basically she redirects damage. So, you know, if you I don't know, if you send in a creature and, you know, someone blocks it and the creature would die, you can tap her to redirect the damage that would have been dealt to your creature back at, you know, that creature, or you could do it to another creature if you wanted to. So she's pretty cool. You know, she flies, she has vigilance and haste just like Aurelia, but she lets you redirect damage however you want it to another creature. So she's pretty cool. So those are the 4 legends. Next we'll take a look at the 2 guild mages. First up we have Sunhome Guildmage, 1 red and 1 white, a 2/2. He allows you to pay 1 a red and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. Or you can pay 2 a red and a white to put a 1/1 red and white soldier creature token with haste onto the battlefield. So he's pretty solid. And then the Boros Guildmage with the hybrid mana symbols. The original guild mages from the original Ravnica block are all hybrid mana symbols. So we have the Boros Guildmage, so you can cast this by either paying 2 red, 2 white, or a red and a white. But it's a 2/2, lets you pay 1 and a red, target creature gains haste until end of turn, or pay 1 and a white, target creature gains first strike until end of turn. So pretty cool. Next we're going to take a look at the stipulation lands for the deck. So first up is Sunhome, Fortress of the Legions, basically the base of operations for the Boros Legion. It will tap for 1, or you can pay 2, a red and a white, and tap it to give target creature double strike until end of turn. So that's pretty damn solid. And then we have the rest of the stipulation lands. There's the Boros Garrison, the Bounce Land. Then we have the Shock Land, Sacred Foundry, and the Guild Gate, Boros Guild Gate. Next are the 3 mana rocks. So here we have the Boros Key Rune. It costs 3. It's an artifact. You can tap it for a red or a white, or you can pay a red and a white, and it becomes a 1/1 red and white soldier artifact creature with double strike until end of turn. So the Key Runes allow you to, you know, fix your mana, ramp your mana, or they can become a creature if you need to get in some, you know, damage if you have no creatures on the board. Then we have the Boros Signet, 2-cost artifact, where you can pay 1 and tap it to get a red and a white. And then we have the Boros Cluestone, 3-cost artifact. It taps for a red or a white, or you can pay a red and a white and tap it and sacrifice it to draw a card. And then lastly, we have the Charm for the Boros Guild. Boros Charm costs 1 red and 1 white. It's an instant, and you get to choose one of the following. Boros Charm deals 4 damage to target player, or permanents you control are indestructible this turn, or target creature gains double strike until end of turn. I think this particular card is actually going for about like $3. It is a very, very solid card. It's got some very good modes on it. I mean, for 1 red and 1 white, you can, you know, flame slash somebody, or you can make all your creatures indestructible. I'm sorry, all your permanents indestructible, or give a creature double strike. So just really, really solid instant. So those are the stipulation cards for the Boros Guild, so you can see that they were in the deck. So next up, we're going to take a look at the remainder of the land base for this deck. Not really much to it. I believe there's only 2 other non-basic lands, so we're going to take a look at those. Emeria the Sky Ruin. It comes into play tapped. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 7 or more planes, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Pretty damn good, and obviously it taps for a white, so if you have 7 or more planes down, this will allow you to resurrect a creature on your upkeep every turn. And then we have Battlefield Forge. It's one of the pain lands. You can tap it for 1, or you can tap it for a red or a white, and it deals a damage to you. And the remainder of the land base is just basic lands. So, you know, we got basic mountain. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 basic mountains. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 basic planes. So not really too much to the land base, mostly basics, and then we have a couple of non-basics. But next we're going to go into the creature base of the Boros Guild deck, which is pretty much the bread and butter of it. It is a very creature-heavy deck. So let's take a look at the creatures now. First up, we have Court Street Denizen. It's a 3-cost 2/2. Whenever another white creature enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. This deck does, or has the ability to produce lots of soldier tokens. So this is a really good card for this deck. You know, you're spitting out soldier tokens. If you have this on the board, you can, you know, tap stuff down so you can, you know, get in damage on your opponent so their creatures can't block. So pretty solid creature for this deck. Next up, we have Foundry Champion. It's a 6-cost 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, it deals damage to target creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control. So that can potentially, you know, if you start producing tons of creatures and, you know, let's say you have, you know, 20 creatures on the board and you drop this guy, he's going to deal 20 damage to a creature or a player. So he could end a game on his own. He's really, really good. But his other 2 abilities is you can pay a red to give him fire breathing, or you can pay a white to give him a +0/+1. So he pumps his attack and his defense, and when he comes into play, he does damage to a creature or player equal to the number of creatures you control. So just on his own by himself, if he's the only creature you have on the board, when he comes into play, he'll deal 1 damage. But most of the time when you drop this guy, you're going to deal some significant damage because it does produce a lot of soldier tokens. Next up, we have Firemane Angel. It's a 6-cost 4/3 flyer with first strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, if it's in your graveyard or in play, you may gain 1 life. So basically, as long as it's not in your deck or in your hand, every upkeep you gain a life off of this. So life gain's always good. And then it also has the ability where you can pay 6, 2 red and 2 white to return it from your graveyard to play, and play this ability only during your upkeep. So it basically allows you to resurrect it. I mean, the mana cost on it is very, very hefty. That's what, 7, 8, it's 10 mana. So, I mean, if it's late game and you get 10 mana floating around, you desperately need a creature on the board, I mean, you could resurrect this from your graveyard. But it's a pretty solid creature. A 6-cost 4/3 flyer with first strike is pretty good. I mean, it gains you a life every upkeep if it's in your graveyard or in play. So, I mean, it's pretty good. I like it. Next up, we have Goblin Legionnaire. It's a 2-cost 2/2 where you can pay a red and sacrifice it, and it deals 2 damage to target creature or player, so it shocks a creature or player. Or you can pay a white and sacrifice it to prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn. So a 2-cost 2/2 is pretty good. You know, one where you can pay a red and sack it to shock is pretty good, or you can prevent damage with it too. So I felt like it was a pretty fitting card for the Boros deck. Next we have Truefire Paladin, 2-cost 2/2 with Vigilance, where you can pay a red and a white to give him a +2/+0, or pay a red and a white and give him first strike. So pretty versatile card. You know, it comes down early. You can, you know, smash a lot of face with it, and it's vigilant, so it can block as well. So pretty solid card. Here we have Desolation Giant, 4-cost 3/3 with Kicker. The kicker cost is 2 white, so when it comes into play, destroy all other creatures you control. If the kicker cost was paid, destroy all other creatures instead. So if you cast this guy and you don't pay his kicker cost, you kind of screw yourself over because he's going to blow up all your other creatures. But if you do pay the kicker cost on him for the 2 white, so if you play him for 2 red and 2 white, he basically Wrath of Gods every creature but himself. So he's essentially like a sweeper on a creature if you kick him. If you don't kick him, you know, it's just kind of dumb because you're just going to blow up all your creatures. But you know, a mass board wipe on a creature is pretty solid. Here we have Spite-Mare. He's a 4-cost 3/3. Whenever he is dealt damage, he deals that much damage to target creature or player. So, I mean, you could just keep attacking with this guy over and over. I mean, that's generally what I do with him. You know, if somebody blocks him, you know, with a 6/6, he's going to shoot 6 damage either back to that player's face because he's going to be dealt 6 damage, or 6 damage to any creature that you want. So it really makes your opponents think about blocking him with a creature, or, you know, using like a burn spell maybe to remove him. You know, the only real efficient way to get rid of him is with just a straight out kill spell or like an exile spell. I've seen this on the opposite end of the table as me before, and I'm very wary about blocking it. I usually let the 3 damage go through until I just can't take it anymore, and then I, you know, find a way to remove it off the board without actually having a creature block it. But he's really, really good. I like him. Next we have Luminant Primordial, 7-cost 4/7 with Vigilance. When he enters the battlefield, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target creature that player controls, and that player gains life equal to its power. He's really, really solid. You know, a creature that comes in, and, you know, if you're playing a multiplayer game, you know, there's like 2 or 3 other players in the game. You know, if you have 4 opponents, he's going to exile 4 creatures, 1 for each opponent. Yeah, your opponents gain life equal to that creature's power, but I'll gladly let my opponent gain some life if I can just straight out exile a big nasty threat that they have on the board. So he's pretty good. Here we have Blazing Archon, 9-cost 5/6 flyer that makes it so that creatures can't attack you. Pretty self-explanatory, not really too much to talk about him. You have him on the board, you can't be attacked. Pretty solid. Next we have Knight-Captain of Eos. He's a 5-cost 2/2. When he enters the battlefield, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens into play. So he is a token generator, but he allows you to pay a white and sacrifice a soldier to basically fog, or in this case, seeing as it costs white, you could, you know, Ethereal Haze or Holy Day or whatever other spells that there are that prevent combat damage in white. So this deck, like I said, produces a lot of soldier tokens, so, you know, you can produce a bunch of soldier tokens, and if you have him on the board, you can, you know, you can Holy Day all day. Yay! Next up we have Firemane Avenger. It's a 4-cost 3/3 flying angel with Battalion. Whenever Firemane Avenger and at least 2 other creatures attack, Firemane Avenger deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. So if you Battalion this creature, essentially lightning helixes. So it's pretty good. You know, most of the time when you're attacking with this deck, it's a very aggressive deck. You're probably going to be attacking with, you know, at least 3 creatures. So a creature that lightning helixes when you meet that Battalion ability is really solid. Next up we have Sun Titan, 6-cost 6/6 with Vigilance. When he comes into play or whenever he attacks, you get to resurrect a permanent card from your graveyard with converted mana cost 3 or less. Really, really good in this deck. There's a lot of 3 and lower cost cards in this deck, so he is a house in this deck. You know, he smashes for 6 damage. He has Vigilance, and whenever he attacks, you know, you resurrect a permanent with 3 or less casting cost right into play from your graveyard. So he's really good, especially in this deck. Next up we have Hero of Oxid Ridge, a 4-cost 4/2 with haste, and Battle Cry. Battle Cry is whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0. So, you know, lots of little creature tokens that can be generated with this deck. The Battle Cry will, you know, let them hit for more damage. But also he has, whenever he attacks, creatures with power 1 or less can't block this turn. So if your opponent is playing a deck that generates, you know, 1/1 tokens, maybe Saprolings, maybe you're playing against Selesnya, this guy will allow you to make it so that those 1/1 Saprolings or any creature with power 1 or less can't block any of your creatures because they just straight up can't block. So he's really solid. Next we have Basandra, Battle Seraph. She's a 5-cost 4/4 flyer. Players can't cast spells during combat. So that's pretty good, essentially on your turn, or anybody's turn for that matter. Nobody can cast spells during combat. So when you go to combat, you know, you declare your attack step if nobody plays anything, and then you go into combat. Essentially, none of your creatures can be hit with kill spells or burn spells or anything like that. So she has a little bit of a control aspect to her, but she also makes it so that you can pay a red and target creature attacks this turn if able. So she can force creatures to attack. So, you know, if your opponent is sitting on, you know, a creature that's, you know, just doing something passive while it's just sitting there, you can pay a red and force it to attack and then potentially kill it with one of your creatures. So she's really good. Next we have Boros Reckoner. He's a 3-cost 3/3. When he's dealt damage, he deals that much damage to target creature or player. So kind of like Spite-Mare, pretty much the same thing. You know, whenever he's dealt damage, he shoots that much damage to a creature or a player. And you can pay a red or a white with the hybrid mana symbol and give him first strike until end of turn. So he's overall really, really good. He's a 3/3. You can give him first strike. You know, 3 first strike damage will kill a pretty decent amount of creatures. But the fact that whenever he's dealt damage, he, you know, has the same ability like Spite-Mare. So, you know, if you attack with him and your opponent blocks with a 6/6, well, guess what? He's going to be dealt 6 damage, and then you can shoot that 6 damage that he's dealt to, you know, your opponent or another creature. So he's really, really good. Basically Spite-Mare without flying, but you can give him first strike. Here we have Loyal Sentry, a 1-cost 1/1. When he blocks a creature, destroy that creature and him. So he's pretty good. You know, he will destroy any creature that he blocks. He gets destroyed as well, but, you know, he costs 1. You could resurrect him with Sun Titan and just keep blocking creatures and killing them. And resurrecting him on your next turn, you know, you get the idea. He's really good. Here we have Soul Warden, 1-cost 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you gain a life. So, you know, Boros likes to gain life, it likes to smash face. So, you know, this card was kind of a no-brainer. It produces a lot of tokens, it gets creatures on the board really fast, why not gain some life off of it? Here we have Rhea Dawnbringer, 9-cost, 4/6 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to play. So, essentially, resurrection for creatures on your upkeep every turn. So, really solid. Here we have Hero of Bladehold, 4-cost, 3/4 with Battle Cry, and whenever Hero of Bladehold attacks, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. This card's really good, so it produces tokens when it attacks, and not only does it produce tokens, but it produces tapped and attacking tokens. And it has Battle Cry. So whenever you attack with this creature, you're gonna declare it as an attacker, you're going to attack with it, it's going to produce 2 1/1s that are essentially, on that turn, going to be 2/1s, because this has Battle Cry. So all your attacking creatures get +1/+0. So this essentially pumps out 2/1 soldier tokens, tapped and attacking. So this is a really, really good card. Here we have Grand Abolisher, 2-cost, 2/2. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So it just makes it so that your opponents have less answers to the legion of creatures and soldier tokens that you're going to be generating and attacking with. So basically shuts your opponents down during your turn. They can't cast spells or activate abilities of anything, so he's pretty good. Next up we have Siege Gang Commander, 3-cost, 2/2. When he comes into play, you get 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. So it doesn't produce soldiers, it produces goblins, but it allows you to pay 1 and a red and sacrifice a goblin so that Siege Gang Commander shocks target creature or player. So he's pretty solid creature removal, and he generates tokens. And he's red, so he fits into Boros. Here we have Angelic Skirmisher. It's a 6-cost, 4/4 flyer. At the beginning of each combat, choose First Strike, Vigilance, or Lifelink. Creatures you control gain that ability until end of turn. I felt like this was a very fitting card for the Boros deck. Boros does have access to a lot of angels. I mean, the former guild leader was an angel. The current guild leader is an angel. You know, you have Firemane Angel, Firemane Avenger. You know, there's been a lot of angels from the Boros Guild, so I felt like this was a very fitting card for the Boros deck. You know, and First Strike, Vigilance, and Lifelink are very fitting abilities for the Boros Guild, so this was kind of like a no-brainer card. And it's a really good card. Here we have Flame-Kin Zealot. It's a 4-cost, 2/2. When it comes into play, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain haste until end of turn. So if you have a way to produce a lot of tokens in one turn and then you drop this guy, he's going to pump all your creatures +1/+1 and they gain haste. So he's pretty solid. Here we got Loxodon Gatekeeper, 4-cost, 2/3. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control come into play tapped. So again, another card that allows you to, you know, be very aggressive. Boros is an aggressive guild, so this card lets you be aggressive because all the stuff that your opponents play, at least artifacts, creatures, and lands, come into play tapped. So your opponent plays a creature, oh, well, it comes into play tapped and it can't block any of your creatures that turn. It also slows down their artifacts and their lands. So, you know, this card just allows you to be more aggressive. Here we have Brion Stoutarm, 4-cost, 4/4 with Lifelink. And he allows you to pay a red and tap him to sacrifice a creature other than himself, and he deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player. So he allows you basically to fling a creature at somebody, and he deals damage equal to that creature's power. So he's pretty solid. Here we have Sunhome Enforcer, a 4-cost, 2/4. he essentially has lifelink. This is just old wording. Whenever he deals combat damage, you gain that much life. And then he also has fire breathing for 1 in a red. So he's pretty solid. Next up we have Nobilis of War. It's a 5-cost 3/4 flyer that gives attacking creatures you control +2/+0. So, you know, another really aggressive card. It just fits Boros really well. Here we have Inferno Titan, 6-cost 6/6 with fire breathing. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, it lightning bolts a target creature or player. So, you know, another very aggressive card that fits very well into an aggressive guild deck. Here we have Ordruun Veteran, a 4-cost 3/1 with Battalion. Whenever Ordruun Veteran and at least 2 other creatures attack, Ordruun Veteran gains double strike until end of turn. So, you know, he can potentially smash some pretty big face. So, you know, as long as you attack with him and 2 other creatures, he's going to get double strike. Not a lot of creatures are going to survive 6, you know, because double strike, he'll deal first strike damage, then normal damage. So, not a lot of creatures are going to survive 6 first strike damage. And if he hits your opponent, actually, no, I'm sorry. I worded that completely wrong. Not a lot of creatures will survive 3 first strike damage, and even if they do, then he's going to still deal another 3 damage to them. Yes, he might die, but, you know, it will potentially take out a lot of smaller creatures. And if he hits your opponent, he's going to hit them for 6 damage, because he's going to hit for 3 and then 3 again. So, pretty good card. Fits well into the theme of Boros. Here we have Spark Trooper. He's a 4-cost 6/1 with Trample, Lifelink, and Haste. And at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice him. So you drop this. You could drop this on turn 4, smash someone's face for 6, and gain 6 life. I mean, that's pretty solid. You know, if you have a, you know, Ray of Dawnbringer, or if you have an Emeria of the Sky Ruin and it's primed, you know, you keep getting this guy back and, you know, dropping him for 4 mana and hitting for 6 damage and gaining 6 life. Yeah, I'll take that. Here we have Frontline Medic. It's a 3-cost 3/3 with Battalion. Whenever Frontline Medic or at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control are indestructible this turn. So really, really solid card. It also allows you to sacrifice Frontline Medic, counter target spell with X in its mana cost, and lets its controller pays 3. So kind of like a mana leak, in a way, for any spells with an X cost in them. So, you know, like Comet Storm, or Consume Spirit, or, you know, anything with an X cost in it. I just can't think of any more off the top of my head, but he's really good. He's a really solid fit in this deck. Here we have Captain of the Watch, another token generator, 6-cost 3/3 with Vigilance that gives other soldier creatures you control +1/+1 and gives them Vigilance. So a lot of the creatures in this deck happen to be soldiers, so, you know, this will pump a lot of your creatures and give them Vigilance. And it also brings into play 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens when it comes in. So not only does it generate 3 1/1 soldiers that turn into 2 2/2s with Vigilance, but it pumps all your other soldiers, and a lot of the actual creatures in this deck happen to be soldiers as well, so this just fit very well into the deck. Here we have Benalish Commander, a 4-cost creature with the ability of his power and toughness are each equal to the number of soldiers you control. So like I said, you know, a lot of the creatures in this deck happen to be soldiers. This deck has lots of ways to produce soldier tokens, so he can potentially become very big. But he has Suspend X. So basically what Suspend is, for this, you pay 2 white and X. Obviously X can't be 0. But basically the way Suspend works, so let's say you dump 4 mana into this. So this will get removed from the game with 4 time counters on it because you paid 4 mana for the X cost. So basically how it works is every upkeep, you remove a time counter from it. So this kind of just sits in limbo. Every upkeep, you remove a time counter from it. And when you remove the last time counter, the card comes into play and it has haste. So at the bottom here, whenever a time counter is removed from Benalish Commander while it's removed from the game, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. So, you know, if you dump some mana into this, like I said, if you dump 4 into it every upkeep, you remove a time counter from it, and you also get a 1/1 white soldier. So, you know, he's really good. He produces tokens if you dump mana into the X cost, and when he comes into play, he's huge because this deck produces a lot of soldiers, so he's pretty good. Here we have Mentor of the Meek, a 3-cost 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. So pure card advantage off of this guy. You know, all the tokens that you make, you can pay 1 off of the token coming in and then draw a card. You know, if you cast, you know, some other creature with power 2 or less and you pay an additional 1, draw a card. So he's just pure card advantage in this deck. Here we have Balefire Liege. It's a 5-cost 2/4 that gives other red creatures you control +1/+1, other white creatures you control +1/+1. Whenever you cast a red spell, it deals 3 damage to target player. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3 life. So very, very fitting card for Boros. It's a very aggressive card. It pumps all your red and white creatures +1/+1. So, you know, if you have a multicolored card, let's say a Firemane Angel, that's going to get +2/+2 because it's red and white. And it basically lets you, you know, if you cast a multicolored red and white spell, you're going to Lightning Helix because it's going to deal 3 damage to target player off of the card being cast because it's red, and you're going to gain 3 life if it's white. So really, really solid card for the Boros deck. Here we have Legion Loyalist, a 1-cost 1/1 with haste and Battalion. Whenever Legion Loyalist and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample until end of turn and can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn. Really solid card. So if you Battalion, all your creatures are going to get first strike and trample, and they can't be blocked by tokens. So, you know, if you're playing against Selesnya or perhaps another guild that produces tokens, and you Battalion with this guy, tokens can't block any of your creatures. So he's really, really good. Okay, so that is the creature base of the deck. Pretty hefty portion of it, but, you know, Boros is a very aggressive deck that likes to smash face. So naturally, there's going to be a lot of creatures in it. But next up are the artifacts, or should I say artifact. We did already look at the mana rock, so there are 3 other artifacts in this deck, but this is the only other one that we haven't looked at yet, and it is Dolmen Gate. It's a 2-cost artifact that prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. So if you have this on the board, whenever your creatures attack, they don't take any damage from combat or from, you know, burn spells or anything like that, as long as they're attacking. All damage, well, actually, no, I'm sorry, it's combat damage, so I take that back. All damage that would be dealt to them in combat is prevented when they're attacking. So, pretty damn solid card. You're going to be attacking a lot, it's an aggressive deck, pretty good fit. Okay, next we're going to take a look at the enchantments of the deck. First up, we have Glory of Warfare. It's a 4-cost enchantment. As long as it's your turn, creatures you control get +2/+0. As long as it's not your turn, creatures you control get +0/+2. So, you know, a red and white card that pumps all your creatures +2/+0 on your turn, and then makes them more durable when it's not your turn. So I felt like it was a pretty fitting card for the deck. Next up we have Cathar's Crusade. It's a 5-cost white enchantment that's just absolutely bananas. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. I've considered cutting this out of decks that I have it in just because of the sheer amount of math that you know, you have to do and counters that you need to keep track of. Sometimes it just gets way out of hand, especially with decks that produce a lot of tokens. I do run this in the Selesnya deck as well, but you know, don't get me wrong, it's an amazing card. It's just sometimes it gets out of hand with the amount of counters that you need to keep track of, especially if you're just pumping out massive amounts of creature tokens and whatnot. But amazing card. Next we have Martyr's Bond, basically the white Grave Pact, but not for just creatures. It costs 6 mana, and whenever it or another non-land permanent you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. So if someone blows this up, it's an enchantment, so every opponent is going to sacrifice an enchantment. If you lose a creature, every opponent's going to sacrifice a creature. If you lose an artifact, every opponent's going to lose an artifact. You get the idea. So basically like Grave Pact, except it hits all non-land permanents you control. So pretty damn good. Here we have a soldier token enchantment here. It's a machine of an enchantment, mobilization. Gives all your soldiers vigilance, so that's pretty good, but you can pay 2 and a white and put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. So you get this down early game, and you start, you know, pumping out like a soldier every turn, and then starts getting, you know, later in the game, you're getting more mana. You know, at the end of your opponent's turn, you know, you can, you know, dump whatever untapped mana that you have into this to produce a ton of tokens. So another token generating card for this deck that makes soldier tokens. It's just a really good card. Fits very well into Boros. Here we have another creature token enchantment, or generating enchantment, I should say. Rise of the Hobgoblins. Cost 2. Whenever Rise of the Hobgoblins comes into play, you may pay X. If you do, put X 1/1 red and white goblin soldier creature tokens into play. So when you cast it, it costs 2. You know, if you pay an additional, let's say, 3, you get 3 1/1 red and white goblin soldiers. And then you can pay a red or a white with that hybrid mana symbol. Red creatures and white creatures you control gain first strike until end of turn. So, really solid enchantment. Generates tokens and allows it to give your red and white creatures first strike. So, for 1 red or 1 white mana. Gives all your creatures, red and white creatures, first strike. So really good enchantment. Here we have one of the board wipes in the deck, Day of Judgment. Cost 4, destroy all creatures. Pretty self-explanatory. Here we have Waves of Aggression. It's a 5-cost red and white sorcery. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. So, you know, it's kind of like Aurelia's ability, you know, in spell form. But what's really cool about this card is you can retrace it. So basically, retraces, you may play this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. So if you cast this, you know, you get an additional combat and an additional main phase after your first combat phase. And, you know, you can cast this from your graveyard if you discard a land card and pay its cost. So a reusable card that gives you multiple combat phases just, you know, fits so well into Boros. Here we have another board wipe, Chain Reaction, costs 4, it's a sorcery, it deals X damage to each creature where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So really solid red sweeper if there's a lot of creatures in play. Here we have Bright Flame. It's a red and white sorcery, costs 2 red, 2 white, and X. And it has the old Boros ability Radiance. Bright Flame deals X damage to target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it. You gain life equal to the damage dealt this way. This card can do ridiculous things and gain you a ridiculous amount of life. So, you know, if you dump 4 into the X cost on this, and you target a creature, you know, that's 2 colors, This is going to deal 4 damage to each other creature that shares a color with the creature that you targeted. So I've cast this before and gained upwards of like 200 to 300 life in a multiplayer game. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous card, and it's really good. I really like this card. Here we have Comet Storm. Costs 2 red and X. It's an instant with multi-kicker. For 1, you may pay an additional 1 any number of times as you cast this spell. And then choose target creature or player. Then choose another target creature or player for each time Comet Storm was kicked. Comet Storm deals X damage to each of them. So if you dump, let's say, 2 into the X cost, and then if you multi-kick it, so let's say you pay 2 for the X, and then you pay an additional 3 for the multi-kicker. So 2 on the X, 3 on the multi-kicker. So you're going to deal 2 damage to 4 creatures or players. Because every time you multi-kick it, it basically copies itself and lets you target something else. So it's a really good burn spell, and at instant speed. So it's a really good card. Here we have War Leader's Helix. It's a 4-cost instant, deals 4 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 4 life. So it's essentially Lightning Helix. It just costs 2 more mana, and it deals 4 damage instead of 3 damage. So I felt like this just had to be in the deck. It's the Helix of Aurelia. So I just felt like this had to be included in the deck. Here we have Intimidation Bolt, 3-cost instant, costs 1, a red and a white. It deals 3 damage to target creature. Other creatures can attack this turn. So, you know, if someone goes to declare their combat phase on you, you can cast this, deal 3 damage to target creature, and then make it so that other creatures can attack. So it basically shuts your opponent's combat phase down if you cast this as they're declaring their attack phase. So it's a pretty good card. Here we have, here we have Aurelia's Fury. It's a 2-cost instant, a red and a white, and with X, Aurelia's Fury deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Tap each creature dealt damage this way. Players dealt damage this way can't cast non-creature spells this turn. This is a really, really good card. So, you know, if you dump 5 into the X cost, you can split that 5 damage however you want among any number of creatures or players. So, you know, you could deal 1 damage to 5 creatures, 5 different creatures, or you can deal 2 damage to 1 creature, 1 damage to another creature, and then 2 damage to an opponent. You get the idea. You get to split it however you want. But any creature that's dealt damage this way becomes tapped, and then any player that you deal damage with on this can't cast non-creature stuff. So it's a really solid card. Taps creatures down and makes it so that your opponents can't cast spells, essentially. You know, instant sorceries, artifacts, enchantments, planeswalkers. So it's a pretty good card. I like it. And it's the Fury of Aurelia, so I just felt like it had to be included in the deck. Okay, here we have Bathe in Light, a 2-cost white instant with Radiance. Choose a color, target creature, and each other creature that shares a color with it gains protection from the chosen color until end of turn. So, you know, it's a Boros card because it has Radiance, but, you know, this can potentially win you a game. You know, if you choose the right color and you target, you know, a creature, you know, let's say you target, I don't know, one of your white soldier tokens, and you pick, let's say, black. So every creature that shares a color with the creature that you targeted all gain protection from black. So, you know, if your opponent is playing a deck with black, you could potentially use this to just alpha strike them and kill them flat out, which I have done before with this card. So it is a very good card. It can potentially kind of backfire on you, you know, because it will give, you know, if your opponent is also playing the same color, you know, it's going to give all their white creatures, you know, if you target a white creature, it's going to give all their white creatures protection from the color that you choose as well. So you have to be really picky with how you play it, but it can potentially win you a game. and it has won me games before. And lastly, for the instants and sorceries, we have Lightning Helix. Obviously, just had to be in the deck. 1 red, 1 white, instant, deals 3 damage to target creature or player, and you gain 3 life. I really do like the art on this one with a Johnny. I really think the art on this is really, really good. So, obviously, Lightning Helix had to be in the deck. Just one of the most well-known Boros cards. And then lastly, the 1 Planeswalker, which kind of goes well with the Lightning Helix that has him on it, is a Johnny Vengeant. He costs 2, a red and a white, comes into play with 3 loyalty counters. His first ability is +1, target permanent doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So, you know, you can shut down a permanent for a turn. And then his second is -2 when he Lightning Helixes, so very fitting for the Boros deck. The last ability I generally never play. I usually only ever activate the first 2. But, you know, if the game's getting really drawn out and I just, you know, need to get it over and done with, you know, I can ultimate him and destroy all lands somebody controls. Generally, I won't do that because, you know, no one's going to have fun if they don't have any lands that they can use to cast their cards. But, you know, I have activated that ability before on him, but it's mainly just to get a game that's just going way too long to end. So, but a Johnny Vengeant fits very well into the Boros deck. Okay, so that wraps up the deck tech for the Boros Guild deck. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned to our channel for the deck techs on the other 9 guilds. So, like I said in the introduction to this video, I did 5 of the decks, Derek did 5 of the decks, so, you know, each of us are going to tech 5 decks. So, hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you guys enjoy the ones that we're going to do after this. So, stay tuned to our channel for that. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and we will catch you later.